Ask for Atwood.
Atwood. Got it. What's the message?
Wintermute.
Wintermute?
So, it is finally time to make this video. What the hell is Wintermute? We know it's the title of the Long Dark's campaign, but what does it mean? Before you continue watching, I would highly recommend you watch this video about Jeremiah, the first person to say the word Wintermute. It will give you some important context for this video, but I'll make sure to go over the most important details here. Also, please make sure to comment, like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so I can keep making these videos. First, I decided to look up the word Wintermute to see if it has a definition. It turns out it doesn't have a definition, at least not in English, but it must have a meaning, right?
Yeah, just that. Atwood will know what it means.
The way Jeremiah says Wintermute makes it sound like it has an important meaning. Especially since it is a one-word message, it must mean something very specific. u/themighty-kebab02 makes a good point in this Reddit post from 2 years ago. Wintermute is a code and only Jeremiah and Atwood know what it means. In this post by Marrowstone on the Hinterland forums from before Wintermute first released, Raphael says this about various people's theories. Wintermute doesn't mean any of these things. I don't want to read too much into it, but why did he capitalize every letter in the word? So Wintermute does not refer to the William Gibson novel Neuromancer, the muffled sound produced by falling snow, or the German words Wintermute or Winterstille, which express the silence in the wintertime. I do apologize if my pronunciations of the words were wrong. Honestly, none of this is getting us anywhere, but it helps narrow down what we shouldn't be accepting. I do think that u/themighty-kebab02 was onto something though. Wintermute is a code word. I think it's best to start from the source of this word and follow where it leads us. Wintermute is first spoken by Jeremiah. In the video about him, I said that his secretive past was very important. What I'm referring to is his potential military experience that he worked really hard to hide. Whatever part of his life he is hiding taught him things such as communication via code words and maybe also provided him with work opportunities such as working with government researchers or contractors. Why do I say this? Another vital thing I mentioned in the Jeremiah video is who he knows. Atwood, who is the only other person that knows the meaning of Wintermute, is crucial here. The message Wintermute was originally meant to go to her. This is pure speculation, but assuming I am correct that Jeremiah served time in the Canadian Armed Forces, he could have eventually met and worked with Atwood. We know very little about her based on what Jeremiah says, but there is another character in the game that knows her. Jace, who is Will's assistant and sabotaging Mathis's plans in Wintermute episode 4, knows Atwood personally.
We're out of time. I've been gone for too long. Atwood's gonna be pissed.
What did you say?
Huh? Nothing. Just said we're running out of time.
No, after that.
Oh, right. Just my thesis advisor. She's the only reason I'm out here at all, Mackenzie. I'm a grad student, astrophysics.
From this, it's safe to assume that Atwood is an astrophysicist. How and why does Jeremiah know an astrophysicist? It's possible they may be childhood friends and they chose vastly different lifestyles and careers, but I do think this is where Jeremiah's past matters. Like I said, I'm speculating that Jeremiah's past experiences, which are most likely military in nature, allowed him an opportunity to work with government researchers or contractors. Actually, this kind of sounds familiar. Without spoiling too much about the Rudiger project, which is the story from the Far Territory expansion, the security chief worked with a researcher or doctor of some kind in her previous work. She actually fell in love with them, but due to their vastly different careers, they eventually split and went their separate ways. I can see Jeremiah and Atwood going through something similar. I don't mean the falling in love part, but the part where they worked together on some kind of project and eventually moved on once that job ended. Later down the line, Atwood would eventually make her way to Great Bear Island. Considering they sound like they were actual good friends, I would not be surprised if Atwood was the one to recommend Great Bear Island to Jeremiah as a place to live. I don't think Jeremiah is an island native. He doesn't exactly seem like he is, but his off-the-grid lifestyle makes it hard to determine that. The conversation that Will has with Jace about Atwood actually reveals a lot of very valuable information.
So, it just so happens that This part of Great Bear offers one of the best unoccluded zones, ideal for setting up certain sensitive instruments for my research so that...
Despite being abandoned and forgotten by the rest of the civilized world, the scientific world has always viewed Great Bear Island as valuable. Whether it's a mad scientist running secret experiments in the 1980s, conservation biologists working to preserve the wildlife, or astrophysicists taking advantage of the unpolluted sky above the island is of great scientific importance.
Where is she?
The Suzuki Radio Telescope. It's about 15 to 20 clicks from here.
The Suzuki Radio Telescope is a very out of place but important structure on Great Bear Island. There is more to it though.
Mackenzie, if the convicts find out about the radio telescope, it'll be bad. It's an old government facility, so there's all kinds of supplies there. Food, medical equipment, vehicles, radios. They could hunker down for weeks, months. Look, Suzuki is shielded. Due to the kind of work they do there, it's shielded from electromagnetic radiation. There's a good chance that all the shit that's been going on out here, that it hasn't been affected in the same way.
Which means?
It means Suzuki may be the key.
Suzuki may be the key. I believe that the radio telescope will play a key part in episode 5, but that is not important right now.
Black Rock is a fortress, but it's broken. It's been broken by the Aurora and everything that's going on right now.
But what the hell is going on right now?
I'm not 100% sure. But astrophysically speaking,
Yeah?
it's pretty messed up.
And that line right there is the most concrete confirmation of what the hell is happening in the Long Dark. Astrophysically, it might not just be the Earth and its magnetic field. Speaking of astrophysics, I happen to know someone that majored in it. My friend Matt from college has agreed to learn a little bit about the game, the first flare, the effects it had on the world, and offer some professional insight on what actually happened the night of the first flare and what is continuing to happen to the planet. Don't worry, I promise this will be important for the video's main topic. The conversation ran for over half an hour, so I want to share the key details about what we discussed. According to Matt, the first flare was definitely a large and powerful coronal mass ejection event that wiped out all electronics around the Earth, including satellites in space. The energy from the first flare acted like an EMP on the power grid, frying everything connected to it and sparking electrical fires. The ejection event would send out a huge cloud of energized particles, which are pulled to the poles due to the magnetic field and produce the auroras in the upper atmosphere. He also mentioned some things that definitely do not happen during ejection events and definitely didn't happen during the first flare, such as magnetic pole reversals or a weakening of the flow of the outer core fluids that generate the magnetic field. He also agreed on my previous theories on why animals would behave differently following the first flare. Additionally, the weather pattern should not be changing unless the intensity of the sun is changing. Matt agrees that Wintermute could be a code word similar to what would be used in the military. Astrophysics is the physics of space, therefore Jace is talking about something from space. That means the various problems and changes that occurred after the first flare come from space, not the Earth. Ejection events can last a few days to months, but prolonged events mean the life cycle of the star is ending. If this is the case, the developers took creative liberties and the sun is slowly reaching the end of its lifespan. Matt agrees that for everything to make sense, creative liberties had to be taken. The one thing that is happening in-game that doesn't fit in were the earthquakes. While earthquakes are common on Great Bear Island, they are far too common within Wintermute. They only started happening in episode 3, which all happens at the same time frame as episode 2. The earthquake epicenter may be closer to Pleasant Valley and Black Rock than Mystery Lake, explaining why they are not felt there at all. I don't believe that a solar flare can trigger earthquakes. So I think we have all the pieces of the puzzle that we can find in-game. We have Jeremiah, Atwood, the code word Wintermute, which only they understand, Jace, the Suzuki radio telescope, and an astrophysical problem affecting the entire planet. Assuming Jeremiah and Atwood worked together in the past on some government or military adjacent project, assuming they had a code word for the exact scenario that occurred with the first flare, assuming that Jace is correct and the problem is astrophysical in nature, and assuming Suzuki is shielded from the effects of the first flare, I think I can concretely say that Wintermute is a code word for a specific scenario. That scenario happened at the start of the campaign, which is an apocalyptic level solar flare that has effectively destroyed modern civilization as we know it. Assuming all this is true, we may be facing a threat from beyond this world. Not aliens, but from the sun itself. Matt and I both agree that some creative liberties had to be taken for everything to make sense. Almost everything about the Long Dark is ripped from reality, except for everything following the collapse. If what Matt and I concluded is true, then humanity is facing the end of the sun's life cycle. A dying, unstable star releasing prolonged coronal mass ejection events would mean extinction, but I don't think that Wintermute, the campaign, is the end. The devs themselves have said that Episode 5 is not the end of the Long Dark, and dying stars take a long time to die. This is my final theory on Wintermute, the word. It is a code word for this specific scenario within the game. A scenario that only certain high-level people and organizations could prepare for, with the exception of the odd prepper. Despite all this, I'm left wondering if I'm wrong. I'd absolutely welcome being wrong here. I've been wrong in the past about certain things and theories, and being wrong just means you get to guess again or eventually learn the truth naturally. Of course, I'm still hooked on what Raphael said. Wintermute doesn't mean any of these things. I still don't know if there is a reason why he fully capitalized Wintermute. Maybe Wintermute has absolutely no meaning. It's a nonsense word that basically has no meaning in most languages, and it sounded cool. It has no meaning and yet makes absolute sense for the story of the Long Dark. Whether I'm right or if I'm wrong, I cannot wait to learn the true meaning of this word and what has yet to come. If Suzuki is the key, then it may be the light at the end of all things. Does Wintermute truly mean anything? Does it just simply signify an apocalyptic scenario has occurred? Let me know what you think. If you are interested, check out the various playlists I've made for the Long Dark lore. The playlists for Wintermute, the Rudiger Project, the history of the game, or the people and places of Great Bear Island are all linked in the description. If you found this video enjoyable in any way, please be sure to comment, like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so I can keep making them.